Michael Marnick, Chair of the Zoning Board, and with me are members George Waugh, Matthew Cole, Lynn Eckholt, Gerald Mulligan, Bruce Taub, Emily Van Giesen has been excused. Also present is the building commissioner of the town, Thomas Evers, and the board secretary, Stacy Faber. We have one case on the docket, case number 2154, which is the application of Timothy Klink for a special permit on behalf of the owner, Lauren Zonger, as set forth in General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 6.
You are where you are.
Zoning bylaw 164-22, note 6. The applicant is proposing to construct a garage which is 30 by 30 or 900 square feet on a lot which is 60,189 square feet, which result in a lot coverage exceeding 4,000 square feet. The total coverage of the building would be 11.1%. This property is located at 261 Tonsett Road, Lane's map number 12, parcel 119. Now, I ask whether any members of the board have had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents, which ought to be disclosed to the board colleagues or the public. There is no positive response. Therefore, I declare is there any other reason why any board member would be disqualified or would be inappropriate to continue? Very well, then I declare that the board is indifferent and impartial. Then we may proceed with Mr. Klink.
Good evening, Tim Klink of the Coastal Companies here on behalf of Lauren Zonger of 261 Tonsett Road. This property currently exists as a single-family dwelling that was built back over this past year and was before you last October for a site plan approval, ZBA approval for a detached pool house. The pool house has since been constructed. The client has since wanted to do some additional changes to the home as well. She has some automobiles that she'd like to put under cover and not have them be sitting out in the yard and exposed to the weather. So we were toying with adding on a 2-car garage to the existing dwelling that's there now. But when we did our renderings of that, we felt that it would expand the property and the home would be too long on the property by doubling the size of the garage. And architecturally, we felt it just wouldn't look right. So we're proposing today in seeking approval for a detached garage measuring 30 by 30 that is located 90 degrees to the right of the turnaround in the driveway. By doing a detached structure, it blends in more nicely to lot. It fits more to the road profile, blends into the neighborhood. There's a lot of properties on Tonsett Road that have a main house and have a barn as well. So we felt architecturally by separating the structures, it looks a lot better than creating a large structure. We did explore, stepping the garage back and doing 2 bays and then stepping it back 2 feet. But again, it made the house very long on the lot. We just felt that really wouldn't look as good. We are at 11.1% site coverage. We do have a fairly large lot at 60,000 square feet, and our overall coverage is 5,419 feet. We don't feel that, the approval of this garage is detrimental to the neighborhood in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't change traffic flow. It doesn't change circulation patterns. It's mainly used for the storage of vehicles. There's no finished room above. There won't be any access to the second floor of the garage. It's just a detached structure. When you look at the plans of the garage, it'll mimic the house. It'll have the same black windows, the same exact trim, the same gray shingles, and kind of be a mini version of the front elevation of the garage that's there. We also orientated the garage with the gable facing 90 degrees to Tonsa Road. We thought that it would be more attractive to have a sloping roof line towards Tonsa Road, since right now the main house has two large gables that face the street. We felt that that would help soften the view from the road for the structures as well. In reading online here, I do see that there's two letters that have come in from neighbors in regards to the project, and I want to address those letters, partly because some of them have inaccuracies. There's been some rumbling in the neighborhood that this property is a rental. It's not. It's a single family home to be used by my client as a single family home and her children. It will not be a rental home. There won't be rental apartments. This isn't an Airbnb property and isn't going to be rented out. They also are referencing other projects that I'm doing in the area, which I feel are kind of irrelevant. And hopefully tonight's focus can be on this one property. So that's what we're looking to do.
Parenthetically, you were back in here on October 21st, 2020,
Correct.
with the, in case number 2141. Those members who voted on that application were myself, Ms. Echols, Mr. Mulligan, Mr. Cole, and Mr. Walsh. Those would be the same members voting tonight. For consistency, I think that would be the most sensible way of approaching it. So why are you coming back with this? That's what seems to cause the greatest concern, I think.
Well, we're not coming back. This is an entirely new application.
Why couldn't it have been included before?
It wasn't thought of before. There was no discussion of a detached garage.
All right.
She had, as time goes on and people, see your property come together and see what's going on, they decided that she has two Land Rover trucks that she has, and she'd like to have them in a garage rather than, sitting out in the driveway. We're not trying to separate the application. That's never the intent here. This detached garage was never proposed.
Any questions by any member of the board? And that includes Mr. Taub.
I just have one housekeeping question. On one of the drawings, you indicated that the coverage was 11.2% based on the change. My calculations indicate it's 9%. If I divide 5,419 by 6189, I believe it's 9%. So I'd just like to have the record accurate if I'm correct.
So if I do my math correct, if I take 5419 divided by 60,189, I get 11.1%.
Okay, I did it twice and I keep on getting the same number. Maybe the computer's wrong. So, okay.
I can try it on another calculator real quick.
Oh, that's fine.
No. Yeah, 5419 divided by 60,000 is not 11.2. Right?
What do you get?
It's I think you're right, George.
Yeah, I've done it twice. I got 9%. So I'm in.
I was trying to do just understand the lot coverage altogether, the house and the existing garage, and then we had the pool house, the connector, and now 900 square feet for the new garage. I was just trying to see the whole picture.
Yeah, to kind of summarize, the original house was 3,800 square feet of site coverage. We then came back to add 1,500 square feet for the pool house. So the original house was under 4,000. The pool house and the connector, the covered walkway, put us over the 4,000. And then the garage adds another 900 square feet for the detached garage.
This board made a finding that after the construction of the pool house, that there would be coverage in the gross amount of 4,519 square feet, which would be 7.4% 0.5%. That was our finding. Now we're being asked to increase the percentage to 9% and change.
What is the existing garage going to stay as a garage, a two-car garage?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're putting what, 3 cars and a boat?
It would basically be a 4-car garage. And when we were putting the project together, we thought a 4-car garage would be too big in terms of the overall massing of the structure because it would extend the structure to be over 140 feet long. So that's why they have the 2 structures.
So it's two-car garage existing and adding another 2-car garage.
Correct.
And am I correct? Did I read it right that the garage is double height? It's the same height as the house?
The garage has the same 8-foot doors. It has the same 10-pitch roof. So it's a garage and the gable above it. The main part of the house is 2 full floors. The garage is not. The garage has your first floor to park the cars and then the 10-pitch for the roof.
In the plan, and if I'm reading it wrong, tell me. It just said, I think it said the garage was 71 feet and the house was 72.
In terms of overall dimensions,
The elevation.
You're reading the top of foundation elevation on the plan.
Oh, not the right one. Okay.
oh yeah, the top of foundation is 72.9. The top of foundation for the garage is 71.5. It's slightly lower.
Okay, but they're the same height.
Overall,
mean-
the structures are the same height, but yeah.
No, Matt, no, am I wrong?
The figures that you're quoting off the plan are the height of the foundation, nothing to do with the ridge height or the overall height of the building.
Okay.
The overall height of the building is 24 feet, 4¼ inches. Is the height of the
Okay.
structure.
I guess let me get at my question. Is this in another case, we looked at a double height garage. Is this basically double height to accommodate a boat that would be more than a regular height garage? Is that what we're looking at?
No, you're seeing basically an identical copy of the garage that's there now. So
Okay.
not a barn for storage of oversized vehicles. The height of the garage doors themselves is 8 feet. So you couldn't put like an RV in there. You couldn't put a sailboat in there with a mast or anything. That's the height of your garage doors is 8 feet.
Lynn, I want to pick up on that because I had the same wavelength here on this garage. In that prior case, we were told that it's only a 1.5 story, but it was 24 feet. It was the same number, my recollection. I went back and did a little research on Google, my wizard, and asked what is the average height of a 2-family home in the United States? A 2-story home in the United States, and it's 18 to 20 feet. So, when these people come in and say, well, it's only a 1.5 floors because the first floor is 18 feet, it's the height is 24 feet, which is the height of a 2-story house. It's only a garage, but but I don't know what's going to be above it. There's going to be plenty of room for something above it because 24 feet's a lot of height. And that was the point the neighbors made in the prior case, Lynn, if we're thinking the same one. And this is more than a garage. I mean, I think a garage is 10 feet with a little peak. This is a 2-story house.
Technically it's not a 2-story house. You've got 8 feet for your first floor height for your doors. We are matching the roof pitch of the existing garage, so architecturally the 2 structures are proportionate to each other. The garage is 30 feet wide. If you drop the height of the garage, your roof pitch becomes extremely low and disproportionate to the structure. So you end up with a structure that's not architecturally appealing because the roof pitch is too low to bring it down. That's why you end up with that 24-foot height. This garage is being constructed with a truss roof system for the second floor. The truss roof system makes the second floor unusable without a complete redesign and reconstruction of the trusses. So there's really no way you'd use the second floor for anything. That's not the intention. And you physically couldn't do it because it'd be a truss roof system.
Well, I guess that begs the question, if you're not using the second floor for anything, why are you making the building so high?
Because we want to match the pitch of the garage to match the pitch of the existing garage of the house. So the two structures are architecturally proportionate to each other. If you drop the pitch,
How tall is the roof? What is the ceiling in the garage? How high from the foundation?
10 feet, because you have to allow for your 8-foot door, you have to allow for your track system, and then your door openers.
Okay, 10 feet's a very high ceiling on a first floor.
That's a typical standard garage, is 10 feet tall on the inside.
I think 24 feet is a big building. I think it's a tall building, 24 feet. Just one man's opinion. I understand the roof line, but it takes on the image then of a second house, as opposed to a smaller building with a lower roof, and you'd say, well, that's not another house. But that's just an opinion. I don't have the expertise on building that you do.
So just so I understand, so the height was an aesthetic matching issue, not that you needed extra height in order to park a boat inside. Am I right?
That's correct. And the window you see on the gable, the square window above the doors, is an architectural detail as well. That window is not there for light or ventilation. It's not there for any other purpose. If you actually walked up closely to the existing house and looked at the window above the garage, you could see the trusses in the background. That existing garage was also built with a truss roof system. There's no stairs to it. There's no attic. There's no access. So that's strictly decorative.
You got 14 feet of empty space from the roof line to the ceiling of the garage, 14 feet?
You're 24 feet overall, and you have about 14 feet. Well, not really that, probably a little less than that, of just empty space above. But that's to give us the same roof pitches, which is a 10 pitch on the structure. If you drop that pitch down, you end up with a garage that's squat in size, and architecturally it's just going to look very odd.
Well, it's a question of which looks worse, a greater mass or that's architecturally pretty to the neighbors and the people who are objecting, greater mass or smaller building. I don't know.
Well, the neighbors who are objecting, the two letters that I've read, they're objecting they're objecting in general. They've got issues town-wide about building development in the town. Their concern is this is a rental property. Their concern is a lot of different things, which are not true. They're bringing up a lot of other issues that are unrelated to this project or this property. They're bringing up issues town-wide.
Right, but you have a big lot, but there's a lot going on in this big lot.
Correct, we do. And we looked at a couple different options for the garage, and you've got one location with a septic, so the garage can't go there. We have the back part of the property in the back left is a big, large open lawn area, but that puts the garage right in the backyard of the three abutting neighbors. Where the garage is located now, it's right next to Nadu's Path, which is technically a 20-foot wide road with a cul-de-sac that services three properties behind us. So we felt that in terms of appeal to the neighbors and the abutting properties, that's the best location to put the garage. Obviously, it's also convenient for the driveway, but it abuts a paper road. That's just a driveway that services the properties in the back. It's the least intrusive to any of the neighboring properties. The pool house in the back serves a nice purpose because it blocks the functions of the pool from the neighbors in the back as well. It provides a natural buffer to it.
Well, Mr. Klink, I just assume that the board hear from the neighbors themselves. They, to me, or at least one may consider that it isn't the size of the garage necessarily. It's the how consistent it is and how harmonious it is with the neighborhood. I remember hearing that discussion back in October about the positioning of what great efforts were given to the positioning the pool house. I think this would be a good time to hear the neighbors speak for themselves and to the board. I don't need to have these two letters dismissed because they're addressing considerations which you consider to be irrelevant, Mr. Klink. That's for the board to decide. Is Sarah here? Sarah,
Yes, I'm here.
can you admit the additional attendees
Yep.
and see who raises their hand?
Ask a procedural question while we're waiting.
Yes, Mr. Todd.
Were the attendees who were just admitted party to the discussion that preceded this?
I thought that they were
So they were on the
they were
line.
on that's the hearing. Not allowed to.
Participating.
That's the way I understand the protocol.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to hear from Julie Sieben, who caused some consternation with at least one or two members of the board concerning your suggestion that the board was less than indifferent on these applications.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Well, thank you for listening to me, and sorry to suggest that anybody was indifferent, because I did look back through the minutes of these meetings from now back to 2017, and it seems that the Board of Appeals generally does grant these special permits, so.
Could we have a name and address for record?
Julie Sieben, 266 Tonsett Road.
Thank you.
So I learned, and I'm a neurology nurse practitioner, so I don't know all about housing and these kinds of rules, but when I understand the rules to be the 4,000 square feet and anything as far as site coverage to go beyond that, it seems if you apply for a special permit, that seems to be granted in many cases. So I am only familiar with this case, and I also wrote a letter back in October 2020. So Tim Klink, I think you said that the town and the neighbors, we had problems with everything all over Orleans, but that's not true. I've actually only written 2 letters in regards to the work that you have done in my neighborhood. So I agree with Gerald, though, that I think having the garage match the size and height of the house is actually aesthetically unappealing, in my opinion. Something that's smaller and more in line with the size of a garage, like Gerald mentioned, maybe 10 feet or whatever that may be, would be more appealing in my book. Much of the vegetation has been chopped down, the trees have been chopped down. I worry about the aesthetics of Cape Cod in general and the environmental costs, but so anyway, it seems like this is just business as usual. In what I have understood, Tim Klink will get his appeal put through and the garage will be built. So there does not seem to be any nepotism or something other than business as usual going on.
well, let's put it this way. Do you object to a structure that is approximately 30 feet by 30 feet, which would be used for the housing of 2 motor vehicles?
What was it, two car garages? 2 times?
No, it's a one
No.
car, one 2-car garage.
1 2-car garage. For the 2 Land Rovers that you didn't think of originally when you submitted the first site plans, because we don't want those left out in the rain. Yes, I do object. I just think it's ugly. I wouldn't mind another garage, perhaps if it were smaller. Or
So
we
the-
take down the pool house.
So a fair way of putting this is the applicant had her chance once before, and the garage wasn't included, and there's no good compelling reason to allow it to be added to the 4,000, in excess of 4,000 square feet. Is that a fair way of putting your position?
Yes, it is.
Good. Okay.
I just want to clarify, there is an existing 2-car garage on the property, right?
That's what you
Yeah,
said,
okay,
what you said, Lynn.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I was trying not to get too personal on the project, and there seems to be some hinting that we planned this out to build a garage later if we got all of our approval.
Not hinting that at all.
No,
Just
no. One person at a time, please.
sorry.
My client lost her husband in March, and these 2 Land Rovers were stored at his business in Chatham. She wants to keep the 2 vehicles for her 2 kids, who are 15 years old and can't drive yet. Those are the Land Rovers that you see that are parked in the driveway right now. So there's no behind the scenes to try to plan this out, to do this separate. She doesn't want to sell the cars, and she wants to keep them somewhere and keep them undercover and give them to her kids. I didn't want to get too personal because I don't feel it's relevant to the project, but there's a lot of hints by some of the neighbors that this was planned out and this is not planned out. The garage was decided to be added to after the fact.
May I respond?
Yes, you may.
I don't know enough to know if this was planned out or not. I just object to an additional large structure being there.
All right. Let's see, could we hear from Mr. Jameson? Mr. Jameson, did you want to address the board?
I'm asking him to unmute, but that's all I can do.
Very well. Is there anyone else in attendance wishing to address the board concerning this application?
I don't see any hands.
Very well. The record does reflect that we have Ms. Stevens' letter, an email addressed to the Office of the Attorney General dated May 13th that is part of the record. We also have an undated statement from Susan Flynn Berg, Rachel Flynn Powell, and Kevin Flynn of 7 Finch Lane. I have some memory of one or more of those individuals addressing the board once before. Can you help me out, colleagues? Do you remember that? Anyway, that letter is also part of the record. Is there any other questions or comments by any members of the board?
I think one of the concerns we've heard tonight is about size specifically, and the scale has been explained as relating to the existing garage. Personally, I don't have an issue with a detached garage, and makes logical sense why the applicant wants it. I think the one thing I'd like to hear a response to is what's driving the 30 by 30 footprint, and how does that 30-foot dimension across the front of the proposed garage compare to the dimension across the front of the existing garage, just to get a sense of the scale comparatively.
That's a good question. And in building, traditionally, garages has always been 24 by 24. That's kind of been the standard in the building industry. but it doesn't take into account the fact that you can't open two doors at the same time in a 24 by 24 garage. The garage that's there now, the existing house is 24 by 24 with 8-foot overhead doors. When you park two vehicles side by side, not only leaves you a couple feet around the vehicles all said and done. We decided to go to a 30 by 30 to give us some space between the vehicles, but also give you some storage space in front of the vehicles for trash bins, for kids' toys. If you drive by the property, you'll see that my client's storing some things next to the garage now. She's got some hockey nets, some goalposts, and things that you'd have when you have a daughter and a son living on the property. So that was the idea with the 30 by 30, was to give us some additional storage space beyond the two vehicles that were there, to help hide some of those type of things. If I may, there's a couple other points I'd like to bring up. I don't know Miss Sieben. I've never met her. Looking at the online mapping software at 266, I've met Greg Douglas. I don't know who Greg's relation is, but he's the owner of record. And Greg and I have talked numerous times. I met him when I first started building 261 Thompson Road last August. I actually feel a little bit sympathetic. Their property is a 14,000 square foot lot. They're surrounded by acre plus lots that can support bigger homes. I do understand some of her concerns.
Don't sympathy.
You may respond afterwards, Ms. Sieben.
And Gregory has explained, and has expressed his concerns with the larger homes going around him. There's, we're doing one across the street. We're now doing the property directly next door. So we've got a panhandle driveway that goes in, and we're building a large home behind them as well. So I understand the feeling of what's going on. Eastward Homes is doing one right behind them. Eastward Homes is also doing 3 homes at the end of Tonsett. So, there's an overall change occurring on Tonsett Road, and I understand that. But I don't feel that we're doing anything that's outside of what's happening in Orleans in general, and I don't feel that's wrong.
Well, actually, you're right. You're not doing anything that's outside of what's happening in Orleans. And I think overall, many of us locals have a problem with that because we like the quality of the town as we have it. It's not the Hamptons. It's not Newton. Second of all, earlier you said we couldn't bring up the other properties that you are working on. I know Lauren owned and sold 169 Tonsett Road. Now she's got across the street from us here, and then the one next door to us. So before we couldn't talk about that, except now we can talk about that. And finally, if I can't talk about other projects she has going on, why are we supposed to consider her kids' needs for the Land Rover? I'm sorry if I'm supposed to be sympathetic, and his last name is Johnson, not Douglas.
My apologies. I just forgot. I have a client named Greg Douglas. So.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak concerning this application?
I don't see any other hands raised.
And I don't happen to notice, I could see the identity of 3 people, but they haven't asked to speak. Then members of the board, I think that we can close this hearing for the taking of evidence, and I ask the sense of the board. As at the outset, I have to consider, does not concern the fact that the applicant has been here before the board twice in 7 or 8 months. But the situation is, the way I see it, is this, that the zoning board, the zoning bylaw allows building coverage in excess of 4,000 square feet if allowed by the zoning board on an application for a special permit. Now, and there are criteria for the granting of a special permit. One of the criteria is the consistency or of the proposed project with the adjoining structures. Now, let's suppose that we, because the culture or the tradition or the custom of building in the town of Orleans has has drawn question on the continued validity or sensibility of a 4,000 square foot cap, then we have to then determine whether the 4,000 foot cap could ever be determined to be absolute. The zoning board is in the business of interpreting sections 43 and 44 of the zoning bylaw, which contain guidance to the board and which developers, owners, and the public can consult at any time to determine what considerations the town had constructed in the zoning bylaw as exceptions to allow relief from, in this case, a dimensional requirement. So let's suppose that there are two adjoining lots, and on application, one lot is allowed to exceed the 4,000 square feet on the filing of particular plans. Then the question is whether or not an adjoining lot with an entirely different owner would then be entitled to a similar relief. I'm looking at it as a stepping stone. That is to say that the neighborhood of uses changes periodically and consistently with the change in the culture. So that, to some extent, that bootstrap in this case was already there once the 4,000 square foot excess was permitted in October. Now, the motivation of the applicant for is adding another building, a 30 by 30 foot two vehicle garage isn't necessarily inimical. It's sensible if all the other criteria for the granting of a special permit are present. And that would be the consistency of the structure, the proposed structure, with the neighborhood. Not necessarily and that doesn't mean the neighborhood isn't the lot itself. The neighborhood is Nadrow's Lane and Finch Lane and 3 or 4 or 500 square feet away. That's why we give notice to that to so many people who might have an interest in what we call, or at least I call loosely, a neighborhood. So that's the way I see the problem. And is anyone else need to want to weigh in or comment on? I don't know if I've made myself clear, but I think that there's a certain amount of stepping stones which occur, and failing the amendment to the zoning ordinance, which would increase building coverage, the cap to say 5,000 square feet. We're going to run into this more often. And we have, as we all know, especially the past 2 years.
Well, the other side of this is taking a look at the land that's covered and where this particular property is. There are a lot of relatively equal sized lots to 266, which Ms. Sieben lives in, but there are also a lot of significantly larger lot sizes, which are being proposed as 261. If I look at the thing here, 267, 261, 259, 255 Tonsett, 254 Tonsett, even 272 Tonsett, 252 Brick Hill. These are all, they look like at least 1 acre plus sizes. If I look at the lot of concern from Mrs. Sieben, I think it's 0.35 acres. And there are a couple of others on the street the same size as hers. And I do think the thing to be considered is the town, through its passing of bylaws, has established criteria that try to control setbacks and sizes of particular properties. So when I look at what's being proposed here from an overall structural standpoint, I see nothing that I find is a violation. I find it's an agreement. Then we have to get into the other issues of potentially the esoterics. And I think we all will have our own opinion on that. I can say I did walk the property. I did walk actually on 264. I did walk around Mrs. Sieben's property. Her property is boxed in. She's fenced it in very nicely. And I'm sure a lot of the people on the street don't like some of the things that are being built. But there's nothing I can see specifically that's wrong with them other than if you don't like to have big structures built. And I'll say what I said before, if the town doesn't like to have big structures built, then they should propose things to planning, get them proposed and get them approved. I just went to the last town meeting and there were 3 pages basically of modifications to the building codes or to the bylaws that people voted on. And I'm going to say again that what's in the bylaws now, our voters, taxpayers voted on them. That's what one way of interpreting what we're doing is what the town required, to use our judgment on what the bylaws say. So I'll quit for now. You can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Mr. Taub.
Thank you. This is a revisit of 2 themes that come up for us frequently. One is does a decision we make have precedential value? And we have traditionally said, at least my view is, we've traditionally said we make decisions on a case-by-case basis. And the second is that there is a bias, at least I perceive it as such, on this board. Bias may not be the right word, please forgive me, but there's a tendency on this board to grant applications because we believe, and we've said this in the past, that property owners have the right to use their property as they wish, so long as it doesn't offend the bylaws. Hence, we have special permits and variances. Aesthetics comes up, and I think aesthetics is a very dangerous area to get into because you can argue that having the same peak is nice. You can argue it's not nice. I don't believe that the board can get into aesthetics as such. I don't have a vote in this, so I'm just going to wrap up my personal views here. explanation offered by Mr. Klink as to why it was not previously a consideration is credible but insufficient. That's, if I were a judge, that's what my opinion would say, credible but insufficient. Having said all of that, in the tradition of the board, I would probably vote in favor of this. Thank you for letting me offer my views.
Thank you, Mr. Taub. Is there any, I'm inclined to agree with Messrs. Taub and particularly Mr. Waugh. Is there any other comments by any?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
I agree with Mr. Waugh and I agree with Mr. Taub. I think it's my point. I agree with Mr. Taub on the aesthetics. It's way beyond our capacity and it's not even in our purview within the statute. But I am sympathetic to neighbors who see a 20-foot tall building being built on the corner as a garage. You know, Mr. Klink likes the line of the ridge line of the house. America is chock-a-block with detached garages that are significantly smaller and have a lower roof line than the house they're detached from. Matter of fact, it's far more common that the garages are smaller. And I think what the neighbors object to in these cases is mass. You know, that came up in the case that Lynn and I talked about earlier this evening. It was the mass of the building that they objected to as much as the existence of it. And I think in this case too, you have a 20-foot tall garage. Is a very tall garage. It's a house. It's a house. It's a narrow, small house. But we don't have, that's not within the bylaw. It's not within our purview, and it's aesthetics. But it does go to mass, and it does go to appearance, and it does go to, I think, neighbor objection. The mass of the building is as important as the square footage, I think. But that isn't what the bylaw limits us to, though. We don't have jurisdiction over mass. We have, this bylaw goes to square footage. And I don't see that the mass enters into our discussions. I think, hopefully, I think as we talk about this, maybe some builders will eventually come to think of the idea as mass as opposed to architectural eye. You know, when you're living next to something and it's 24 feet high versus 12 feet high, it's very different. It's a very different building.
There's no question about that, but there is a way to mediate or mitigate that, Jerry. Then that would be by placing a condition. Maybe it's in the nature of aesthetics, but certainly a condition relative to the height goes directly to the mass. It occurred to me, and I think Matt knows this probably far more specifically than I do, that one of the outer Cape towns in cases involving renovation uses volume, cubic feet changing rather than square feet, which is only two-dimensional. Is that right, Matt?
I can't speak to other towns, but you know, in terms of mass or volume, I think we can agree that that's not the relief that's before us. It's square footage and lot coverage, and certainly understand the concerns with the massing that's proposed. I don't.
Very well.
I don't know how else to compare it.
May I just ask Mike a question?
We're closed to public comment.
Yes. Ms. Eckholt, do you want any comment? Want to make any comment?
My main concern is agreeing with what everyone else has said about the what we've done in the past. My main concern is This is almost on the road. It's 5 feet back from the setback, I think but it's up front. It's very large and a four, in essence, they've got a 4-car garage, 2 and 2. And to me, there is a question about whether that fits in to the appearance and character of the neighborhood, which is something we can make a judgment on. I have concerns about it because of its scale and the fact we're talking about 4-car garage capability, which seems, in that neighborhood seems a bit out of the norm to me. I've driven by it as well. So it's both the scale, the location, and the fact we're talking about, garages, space for something very large. So I have concerns about the neighborhood character, given this proposal.
Mr. Marek, I have another specific comment, I think. We
Yes,
have heard-
please.
We have heard a lot about how all the neighbors, plural, have objected to this particular use. If I take a look at the Board of Assessors abutters list, I think there's, I'm not sure, 25, 26, 27 abutters that have been notified. And apparently we have 4 people here that are listening, only 4 and 1, and then thank you for speaking, Ms. Sutton, but only 1 person speaking up. So again, if there is this neighborhood outrage about this particular construction, where are they? That's all. I mean, if they really feel badly about it, they should be here, talk. But we should have had 50 letters or something, and I just don't see it. So, I mean, I'm not going to accept the fact right now that the abutters are all against it, period.
Mr. Chair, if I may, one of the people that are signed in, Vincent Jameson, is actually my project manager. So he's just watching the hearing. So he's not an
Oh,
abutter.
okay.
Yeah, so that's who Vincent is.
So it goes from 4 to 3.
Yeah. So the massing question does come up, and it's a very good question that Ms. Eckholt brought up. That's why we were exploring whether or not to add on to the existing garage that's there. And I really feel, and I still feel very strongly about it, that a 4-car garage linear along Tonsett Road is massive, is very big, and expands that elevation along Tonsett Road. So that's why we decided to do the detached structure closer to the road because of the septic system, because of the rear neighbors, and turn it 90 degrees. So you do not see the doors facing the road. The doors face the front yard. And you only, as you drive by the home, you're going to see some windows, some shingles. You'll keep driving and you only see the 2-car garage. You come back the other way down Tonsett Road, then you will see those 2 garage doors of the detached structure and the 2 that exist in the main structure. It is 4 cars, yes, I'm not going to deny that, but I feel that the massing overall is lessened by 2 separate structures. The other thing I want to bring up is the size of the structure. Like I said, a typical garage is 24 by 24. We made this one 30 by 30 to have a little extra storage room. I wonder if one would even notice the difference if we put 4 stakes out at 24 and 4 stakes out at 30. Does that 6 feet really make a visual difference? I would argue no, that you would never know the difference if I built a 30-foot garage or a 24-foot garage. When it comes to the building height, Mr. Chair, you brought up other towns. Provincetown has a scale factor where they look at the scale of the structures, the massing of the structures overall on the lot size. Orleans does have some bylaw relative to the coastal bank, and that the height of the structure is dictated by how far back the structure is from the coastal bank. That's an environmental one. Here, there really is no guideline in terms of how high the structure can be other than the 30-foot that's allowed in the town of Orleans. Does 24-foot seem high? I don't know. I don't think so. But, I would like to know the board's opinion of the garage that's there now. The garage that's there now is 24 feet tall. So, I'd wonder, that fits in nicely. It's very comparable to other garages that exist in the neighborhood because garages typically are all built the same size. They have the same 8-foot doors, the same overhead tracks, and most roof pitches in the town of Orleans are between 8 pitch to 12 pitch. So we feel that, you know, the garage does fit in scale wise to the lot. And we actually thought that through in terms of how we were citing it and why we cited it where we did.
Just one point, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cole, please.
I think the point about comparing a 24-foot structure to a 30-foot structure, it isn't, I think we'd all recognize the difference, because not only is it going to be 6 foot smaller in each dimension, it'd be 5 foot shorter. And so the way that our bylaw ties in with scale is that an accessory building like this has to be set back its height from the property line. So your proposed location would work for either size, but I don't think it's fair to say that this board wouldn't tell the difference between a 30 by 30 by 24 foot tall structure and a 24 by 24 by 19 foot 5 tall structure. It is a different volume, and this savvy board would pick up on it.
I didn't mean it to be disrespectful. I think I was thinking in general that most people would have noticed.
Is there any other comments, members of the board? There's then it's time for a motion to approve the special permit. If someone makes such a motion.
I would move we approve the special permit as presented.
Mr. Waugh's motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The second by Mr. Mulligan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Then I will call for a vote by a poll, since this is a virtual meeting. Mr. Marnick, yes. Mr. Waugh,
Yes,
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes,
Ms. Eckholt,
Very reluctantly, yes, and I do think there needs to be some changes in the zoning bylaws.
that you, and Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Then the Mr. Taub is recorded present. The quorum designated to vote. The motion carries unanimously. Ms. Eckholt's caveat or comment will be recorded in the vote. Very well. I will write the opinion. Is there any further business to come before the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, before you joined us, we had some discussion about whether we're virtual or physical going forward.
Oh, is my intention, if I have, I don't know. I was thinking that we should go right to a real personal meeting on June 15th. Is it
I think.
2 weeks from now? We're permitted to do it as of the day before, I think. If the town allows us to use that Skaket hearing room, I'd like to gather there. All right, well, is there any reservation by any member of the board who would feel uncomfortable in doing that?
Wouldn't say I feel uncomfortable, but I certainly appreciate the ease of attending from any location and not being pinned down to getting to town hall at a specific time.
That's very true.
I will, when I'm gone, a little bit in the winter, it'd be great to be able to participate by Zoom. But
I'll second that. I'll second that too.
I'm wondering whether the whole allowance of absentee attendance is going to change. So if Lynn is in North Carolina or South Carolina and Mr. Mulligan is in somewhere in Florida, we could still have a regular meeting with, with allowing you folks to vote. That would be fabulous.
May
Not
I
only that,
comment?
but we be, but that would, to constitute a quorum too. Bruce?
No, I see Mr. Evers' hand up. Defer.
I just wanted to say goodnight. I don't think I really need to be involved in or
Very
should be
well.
involved in the decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Though somewhat tangential, I would like to suggest that while there are some meetings that benefit from being in person, especially ones that require a more confrontational relationship to a witness. I wouldn't want to do a trial virtually, but this form of meeting saves time, energy, gas, pollution. It fosters increased participation, in my view, notwithstanding the technical challenges. And I would advocate for the possibility of our continuing to meet at least, I don't know, but to have some of our meetings virtual, especially when called for by the absence of members. Thanks for listening again.
Sarah, do you have some information about?
Yeah, I have some little bit of insight right now as the mandate goes. The emergency order is lifted come June 15th, but there's the governor has put legislation in to extend the remote participation part of the emergency order through till September, but that's just in legislation. So if that doesn't go through in legislation, you have to be back in meeting in person. And right now we're trying to get it so we can get both rooms to do hybrid meetings. We got the Nauset room up and running as a hybrid meeting, but we don't have the equipment yet to do the other room to be a hybrid. But that's our goal going forward, to get the equipment that we need so both rooms can be hybrid.
Is correct, right, Sarah and Michael, that you have to have a quorum present.
Yes.
If the state of emergency is lifted, there has to be a full quorum physically present. Someone can participate via Zoom and they can vote, but they can't count towards a quorum.
That's correct. That's how it was before the pandemic. You could have the few members remoting in, and you'd have to take a roll call and everything.
But what we've learned from this whole process is that that was logically defective. The fact of the matter is that all of us were as fully tricked out and participatory in every meeting, even though we weren't face to face. So that means that previous prohibition preventing a quorum because someone was out of state and didn't have some other reason to allow them to be part of the quorum, that didn't make any sense. There's I don't even see a public interest in that anymore.
Yeah, hopefully legislation will change so it can kind of be like, yeah, you can have the remote, because obviously we've proved that you can still conduct business with remote meetings. So hopefully, but that's all up in the legislation with the state. That's we have to wait and see what goes through.
I think we're governed by the open meeting law.
Correct.
Well, I think so. But look, I was the one who really opposed all of that from the very beginning. I mean, I was dragging the feet of the board because I thought that you couldn't really run a good hearing unless you could see the people and hear them and consider large exhibits, for example. Well, that's really not true. I think we've done good business. We've done efficient business over the over the past 17 months or so. And anyway.
I
I'm
have
thinking-
also guests. I'm going to escape. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well-
Good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
I
Thank you,
do want
Bruce.
to make one more comment, which is, I guess I'm really old school. Now, I can live with either way. But personally, I much prefer to be in a meeting where I can look somebody in the eye and see what's really going on. So again, whichever way it goes is fine, but I just have to say, I'm anti-Zoom, but I do it. And I really, in meetings, want to see and get the reactions, be it physically, eye to eye or whatever, as to really what's going on. So
Then,
Anyway.
Ms. Tabor, will you let us know as to whether we can have a real live meeting at the next hearing? If we can, we'll meet in the Skaket room.
Yeah, just so you know, we don't have one on June 16th. The next one's July 7th, unless you have something you
Oh.
want to.
No, I was just looking forward to seeing everybody together.
Well, I
That's
said to
all.
Sarah, just so you know, before you got on the call, I said to Sarah that I asked her if I should get a Zoom for the July 7th ad because I know that we're going to be live, but I didn't know what the regulations were. And she said it's kind of a gray area. So I'm waiting to turn it into the
No,
Cape.
no, that's the right way to do it. But if we can, let's
Okay.
meet live at our next meeting. So otherwise, then we can adjourn then, huh? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second,
Second.
then all those in favor, aye, then thank you for all your help.